time now to bring in an IDF spokesperson, Lieutenant Colonel Jonathan Conricus, to talk more about the situation there. Jonathan, I appreciate you being here. It does seem as though there's optimism that we're close to a deal here. If that deal does happen, if the War Cabinet approves it, what does that mean for the IDF? Will Israeli troops remain inside Gaza even during this ceasefire? And what is the military's biggest concern about how this ceasefire will be implemented?
Hi, good afternoon, and thank you for having me. There are many moving parts, and we have to be very, very careful when we assess any deal made with Hamas. Hamas has a proven record of not honoring commitments and firing after a ceasefire comes into effect. The last time they did so was in 2014, and they abducted an Israeli officer at the time. So we keep that fresh in mind. We will implement whatever the Israeli government cabinet votes on, and whatever decision is made, the IDF will implement it on the best possible way. Of course, our troops will continue to be present in Gaza. We will continue to be focused and deployed in the area, and to conduct whatever operations necessary to defend ourselves in accordance with the terms of the agreement. And we must be, of course, very vigilant and careful. We know that the enemy will most likely try to take advantage of this ceasefire in order to improve its tactical positions, and we have to be prepared for that scenario.
And you mentioned that you don't trust Hamas in situations like these. How does that affect the effort to bring these hostages home safely? How do you balance those two things?
You know, we'll have to see what happens, right? Because it's a deal that is, according to the reports, and I think that your reporting is correct. It's also what I am aware of. But according to the reports, then it'll be on a day-by-day basis. We'll see how Hamas delivers on the agreement the first day, and then we will carry that on to the next day. But there will be room for a lot of vigilance and skepticism, and to be ready for any eventualities. We know that Hamas has complete disregard for human life, whether it is Israeli or Palestinian. They couldn't care less about the well-being of their own people. And of course, they're only using our hostages for political leverage. We keep that in mind. What they care about, Hamas, since they are a corrupt and hate-filled organization, is to kill Jews and kill Israelis. And that is how we look at everything they do and say.
Now, the IDF has already secured the release of 5 people that were being held hostage by Hamas. Have you been able to glean any information from them about the operation in Gaza?
Yes, from them and also from Hamas combatants that we have taken captive on the battlefield and interrogated quite thoroughly. They have revealed additional information which is valuable, and that adds up and is compiled by Israeli military intelligence to improve our situational awareness, and most importantly, to improve the ability to get our hostages back. Just for those who may have missed it, we are talking about 46 days. Israeli women, children, babies, infants, and elderly people, and men and women as well, are being held by Hamas for 46 days in inhumane conditions, in direct violation of everything that is right and human. And hopefully we will start seeing some of them back. But I can assure you that the aim of our war against Hamas is to dismantle Hamas, and that what we're seeing now is just one milestone in the bigger scheme of things, to get an opportunity to get hostages back, and then we will continue fighting Hamas until we eradicate them.
And there's obviously still a great concern about the Palestinians that are living in Gaza. Many of them have been displaced. If there is any sort of a ceasefire, would any of them be able to return to their homes, especially in northern Gaza, or is it still in your belief that they need to evacuate that area, get to the southern part of that region?
Yeah, the humanitarian concerns are very important. We want to make sure that the Palestinian civilians, the non-combatants, are safe, and they need to remain in southern Gaza where they are, and those that are in the north, still, we call on them to evacuate, because fighting is not done in northern Gaza. As your reporter correctly reported, there is fighting in Jabalia and Zaytun, in other areas, other Hamas strongholds in Gaza as we speak. And that continues until anything changes, until there is any type of agreement, we continue to fight and to attack the enemy. And we want to safeguard civilians. We still call on them to move towards the south. And once the fighting is done in the north, then I'm sure that we will issue guidance accordingly to the Palestinians. I hope that any ceasefire will be used by Hamas, first and foremost, to take care of the civilians in Gaza, the Palestinians who really need humanitarian aid. But something tells me, based on their behavior so far, that they won't be using it in order to make sure that Palestinian civilians are safe. They will be using the time and energy and resources made available for their military purposes and not to care for civilians.
I want to talk to you now about the fighting that's happened in and around these hospitals in Gaza. The Indonesian hospital, of course, is one of the hotspots right now. Your government's denied shelling the hospital, but said instead that it was targeting enemy fire from within the hospital. Do you believe that Hamas is also operating at this hospital, as you've said that they are operating at other hospitals? And do you have specific intelligence that would lead you to that conclusion?
Well, not only intelligence, proof on the ground. You know, a few weeks back from the Qatari hospital, which was a very nice and well-established and modern facility, Hamas operatives, combatants, fired at Israeli troops from within that hospital. And we have experienced the same thing with the Indonesian hospital, and of course, in and around Shifa. By the way, when we took the Shifa compound, not a single Palestinian civilian was wounded or killed. And that is not by chance. It is by design, because we fight while respecting the human dignity and the need for protection of civilians. Any loss of life of medical personnel or non-combatants is not the intended outcome, and we are working very hard in order to minimize the effect on civilians. It cannot, we cannot always guarantee it. I don't know specifically how these doctors died and what happened on the ground. I've heard the reports, we're looking into it, but I can say categorically, yes, Hamas systematically uses hospitals, and this has been proven, I think, beyond any doubt, that they use the hospitals for military purposes, or let's call them non-medical purposes, to fight against us. This is also the case with the Indonesian hospital and all of the other facilities that are supposed to enjoy the special status of protection according to humanitarian law.
All right, Jonathan Conricus, thank you so much. We appreciate you being here.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app, or follow us on social media.